Hey everyone, welcome to the Council of Trent podcast. I'm your host, Catholic Answers apologist and speaker, Trent Horn. And today I want to talk about how I handle protesters. I think this is an important subject to talk about because over the years, I've noticed public discourse getting more and more volatile, that especially on college campuses, it is difficult for people to engage different ideas, that there is this attitude that has been sown in mainstream media that words are violence, that words you disagree with can be acts of violence themselves. And so it's okay to try to shout down words you disagree with because what you're doing is you're trying to prevent an act of violence from happening, which is absolutely absurd. Words are not violence. Now, there can be words that are not protected under the First Amendment because they are imminent incitements to lawless action. So the words, for example, let's burn down this store, and they're meant to tell a mob that has Molotov cocktails, throw them and set this thing on fire, that would not be protected under the First Amendment because it's an imminent incitement to unlawful action. But aside from that, the First Amendment gives a wide array of protection for speakers, and especially on public university campuses that are funded by the government, and so speakers enjoy First Amendment protection there, not as much on a private university. Private universities have a lot more leeway to decide who gets to speak there. That's why a lot of people ask me, hey, Trent, have you spoken at this Catholic university or that Catholic university? And usually it's a Catholic university in quotation marks because they have very questionable faculty and Catholic values. Then I'll say no, and I highly doubt that I will ever get to speak there. Whereas a Catholic club at a public university, if they invite me to speak, the university can't say no just because some of the faculty doesn't like what I have to say, because that would be a violation of the First Amendment. Though sometimes these public universities try to infringe on student rights. One of their favorite tactics is they'll say, oh, Trent Horn is a really controversial speaker. You'll need to pay $2,000 for extra security detail for this controversial speaker, but they won't require other student groups that bring in controversial liberal speakers to pay the same fee. So that's been fought in a lot of court cases across the country, these kind of things. Or a university, this one's called the heckler's veto. The university will say, we'd love for him to speak, but, we're just worried the students might riot if they hear this person, so we need to shut down your event for the safety of everyone involved. And that's called the heckler's veto, that just because someone threatens to disrupt an event or even to be violent, the event itself can't go forward, where the university should provide the protection of the students just as they would for any other speaker that comes in. And this is important. It's important for us to stand up for our rights in this regard, because otherwise it's very easy for others to silence us and to prevent these important views from being heard. Now, I will say, though, I don't get a lot of protests. I can probably count on my hand the number of times that I have been protested at a talk. Usually I go and speak at a Catholic parish or a conference. It's a friendly audience. Or if I go to a public university, I speak and people come and they actually enjoy what I have to say because I try to present my thought in as charitable and persuasive a way as I can. But on some of the more controversial issues, I do get protesters from time to time, usually if it's on abortion or so-called same-sex marriage. That's usually where it happens. I was actually at a public university in the Midwest. This was, I think, back in 2014 or 15. It was before the Supreme Court legally redefined marriage. So I was giving a talk, the case for marriage, arguments against so-called same-sex marriage. And I went up there and I gave the talk, and I noticed the room was packed. There was probably 100, 150 students. There was a whole group of atheists who sat in the front row with matching T-shirts. And I was worried that there would be heckling, but nothing happened, except at one point during the talk, two young women stood up and began to passionately embrace and kiss one another. Of course, this is their way of protesting my talk on so-called same-sex marriage, I suppose. They did that, and then the university administrators came over, asked them to leave, and then they left. Oh, one of the administrators then said to everyone in the room, by the way, everyone, if anyone needs to decompress or to talk to a counselor after this event. If you're triggered, we have a room available for that. And I asked the university administrator, I said, excuse me, do you offer rooms to counsel people after every speaker that comes to campus, or only to certain speakers like me? And she just ignored the question and said, if you're triggered, come to this room after, so we can continue to reinforce our brainwashing. That's not what she said, but I'm sure it's what she meant. So this happens from time to time, and I was prepared for it to happen again because I was invited recently by YAF, the Young Americas Foundation, to give a presentation at Drew University, a small private college in New Jersey. And I was asked to give a pro-life presentation, a presentation on abortion. And YAF gets involved in controversy because they host speakers like Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro. So there's already a lot of people who follow YAF to see what events they do and just want to see really what they can protest. And some of the students at Drew University talked with the administration and wanted my event banned. Now, Drew is a private university, so they would have the authority to do that. And I give a lot of credit for the local event organizers, the student organizers, to stand up for their freedom of speech and to communicate persuasively to the administration that this would be a good event for the student body. So I'll read to you a little bit of a report that was done by YAF leading up to the event that includes audio recordings of what people said when the students had this meeting with the administrators who were complaining about me, saying that I was this hate-filled, bigoted speaker, that they wanted to have the campus shut down and not allow me to speak in the first place. So the article at the YAF website, I'll include in the link description below, says, words hurt university dean and leftist students attempt to block pro-life speaker. So some students at a New Jersey university are attempting to block a conservative pro-life speaker, so this happened before my talk came about, from lecturing on campus by ripping down flyers and protesting the visit at a student government meeting, according to a tip received through Young America Foundation's campus bias tip line. Leftists on campus have taken to destroying promotional materials to express their disapproval of the pro-life event, in which Horn will present the non-religious reasons to oppose abortion and equip pro-life advocates to graciously make their case in the public square, according to the Catholic Campus Ministries website. Others have circulated social media posts urging students to attend a November 3rd student government meeting and ask them to block the speaker, the conservative speakers. This is about a week before I arrived. And they have photographic evidence here of the flyers advertising my talk that have been torn down and destroyed. Since students at Drew began advertising the event, posters have been repeatedly torn down as leftist posters featuring Abolish ICE or advertising Planned Parenthood remain intact. So they've torn down the flyers. And then what they did is they started to go through my social media. They went through my social media to try to paint me as this horrible, villainous person. One social media post opposing the event read, "Is this what Drew represents?" above a screenshotted tweet from Horn. "If you are uncomfortable with this man speaking at Drew, come to the student government meeting Wednesday at 8 p.m. in the meeting room in the EC." And so they had this, let me bring it up here. "Is this what Drew represents?" And they took a screenshot from my Twitter. And I was like, what is this from? This is from a while ago. This is from back in the summer. And I remembered it. This is not a tweet. This is a retweet with a comment. So, because what I wrote here was, masks are the liberal equivalent of a MAGA hat, a way to show tribal affiliation. Then I won't wear one, so I'm not mistaken for a science-denying liberal who thinks unborn babies aren't human, men can become women, and the CDC is wrong about vaccinated people not needing masks. This was back in May when, do you remember when the Centers for Disease Control, they caused a bunch of controversy because they said, guess what? If you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask anymore. And a lot of people who are very overly anxious about COVID, more than the evidence warrants, went ballistic about it. So the CDC said, no, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear your mask. Remember that brief respite we had? Well, I have that all the time here in Texas, which is awesome. But that's what the CDC said for everyone. And there were people who got mad. So I retweeted and commented on David Hogg was a survivor of a school shooting and has gone on to become a kind of a more liberal gun control activist. And so Hogg, he said something like, which has been left out of here, cropped out, something like, even if the CDC says you don't have to wear a mask outdoors, and they'd said that for a while, he said, I'm going to wear a mask anyways, so people don't think that I'm a conservative. And for me, boom, that was the evidence that for a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people, wearing a mask when it's not medically necessary is done as a sign of solidarity, that the mask has become a political message for some people to show their solidarity with a particular political tribe rather than what makes the most sense medically. So that's why I wrote here that I said, okay, fine, if Hogg is going to say, I'm not going to wear a mask so people don't think I'm a conservative, then my reply was, then I'm not going to if Hogg is going to say he is going to wear a mask so people don't think he's a conservative, then I'm going to say that I'm not going to wear a mask so people don't think I'm a science-denying liberal. And I listed things about men can't become women, unborn people aren't human, or I follow the science where the CDC was saying, hey, you don't need to wear a mask anymore. You remember that all back in the day. So that was the one tweet they found. And then they went through all the rest of my Twitter and social media to try to paint me as this awful, awful person. And when I looked at it, I was like, that's the best you could come up with? So they had that about the masks. Like, I'm not comfortable that he's going to be here. What if he doesn't wear a mask? And I took my mask off when I spoke. I wore a mask, actually, that said it's not about safety, it's about control. Because I believe, like, at a university campus where it's required everyone is vaccinated and you still have to wear a mask, that's irrational. That's absolutely irrational. It's just totalitarian at that point. So I wore a mask to get on campus that said it's not about safety, it's about control. And I took it off when I spoke because that was allowed in the rules. So then they found some other tweet and they said, like, y'all, and they actually wrote Y''ALL. Y'all really gonna platform an openly homophobic religious fundamentalist at Drew University? How am I a homophobic religious fundamentalist? Here is the tweet that they found that says I'm a fundamentalist. I wrote, let's see here. This was back in June 12, 2020. That was during the Black Lives Matter protests. I wrote, I fully support the proposition Black Lives Matter and condemn individual, generational, and systemic racism wherever they exist. However, I do not support the organization Black Lives Matter because it promotes false pro-LGBT ideologies, and that is not a racist position. And so I'm a homophobic religious fundamentalist who should be shut down. Somebody else got mad that I guess I quoted a study on transgender issues that had been debunked, but they didn't say like where I talked about this study. They don't like that I called transgender ideology a disorder. Well, yeah, if a human being thinks he's a cat, that's a mental disorder. If a man thinks that he's a woman, or if he thinks that he's a child, or if he thinks he's something that he's not, then his identity is not properly ordered. It's disordered. Oh, and they found a little article I wrote on Camo, Pride Month, nothing to be proud of. Or, oh no, that was my piece. So they did research on me, and they found out, surprise, surprise, I'm a Catholic who thinks that homosexual behavior is immoral and transgender identity is disordered. So I'm perfectly in line with what the Catholic Church teaches. So like if you shut me down, you're basically saying no faithful Catholic can come and speak at your university. So it goes on. Drew University's president of Catholic Campus Ministry, Nicholas Ramirez, told YAF he was disheartened but not surprised. The hostility toward conservative ideas has only been amplified over the past couple of months, and most especially with the invitation extended to Trent Horn to come and speak to our community about the pro-life cause. Free speech may still be alive on campus, but it is dying. So then they met at this meeting on November 3rd with the administration, and students went to complain about me. And it said, at the November 3rd student government meeting, well, I guess there's admin there and student government, a handful of students expressed their disapproval. One student asked, I would just like to know why campus ministry in particular felt we need to sponsor and platform Trent Horn, as he is an openly transphobic, openly homophobic individual who promotes demonstrably false studies and rhetoric. And so they got a few things here, clips from people that were involved, audio clips. There was somebody who said, I just want to clarify, by the way, that my opposition to abortion is not just anti-woman, it's anti-transgender. because there are transgender men who can have abortions. I just want to clarify, abortion rights aren't just for cis women. And then I love this, followed by snaps of applause from listeners. That's the thing in university campuses now. Clapping is triggering. So I guess you have to snap your support. They say, he's an openly homophobic individual, promotes demonstrably false studies and rhetoric. But the one down here I want to highlight, here is one. Okay. This is audio they obtained from the meeting. This was from the vice president of campus life and student affairs, the dean of students. This is from an administrator saying how they felt when people showed them my Twitter feed, like when I said LGBT ideology is false. This is what they said. They said, words hurt and they stick. And even if they're on Twitter, that hurts. And it says that the dean was saying that while crying, talking about what I had said. Here's the audio.
Words hurt and they stick. And even if they're on Twitter, that hurts. I am 49 years old and sitting here crying about experiences that happened to me in the 1980s. And the fact that this is a community that has come together to show care for others that might be impacted by words blows me away.
So this is a 49-year-old faculty member who is crying because my words might hurt a student's feelings. And my words are just simple declarations of things that I believe this position is false, or I disagree with this view, or this is not correct. This is what is wrong with not just public, private, Catholic, not Catholic. Most universities today, it is not about the pursuit of truth. It is about ideological formation in a very narrow kind of ideology that privileges personal experience and what you think reality is or what you want reality to be with the way the world actually is. And it's a great disservice to these students because it creates individuals who have been enabled so much that they can't actually handle real problems in the world. They expect that if they have a difficulty in the world should solve it for them. And so what makes me so frustrated is that I thought that 20 years ago, students who would do this on campus, that once they got to the real world, they would grow up and realize you can't do that anymore. But these students who were treated like this in college 20 years ago, now they are on the editorial board at the New York Times. Now they are the faculty at a place like Drew University, right? This is someone who probably graduated from college, 25 years ago, could have been part of that campus liberal protesting mentality. I don't know. But those individuals, now it's 20 years later, a lot of them are the administrators on universities who encourage this kind of behavior. And it's just simply not good for human development. Let's see. Other students said that I could speak, but I just couldn't say anything negative about atheism, liberalism, or women. And I should also recognize that some people who have abortions do not identify as women. And so it goes on in that regard. And I was concerned. I was preparing for the worst when it came to these protesters. I was concerned that they would act like a group of students that protested me 6 years ago on the Brock University campus. So this was at Brock University. Let me bring this up here. And this is a private school in Canada. And here, freedom of speech, there's hardly any freedom of speech in Canada. And I was asked to give a presentation on pro-life, and it was to a small group, but the vast majority of the students that showed up were protesters. You can see here. Now, some in the front, they're pro-life. They got their T-shirts on. Other people had banners. They had signs with coat hangers. There were people who were wearing my face as a mask. They had printed out pictures of my face and were wearing it as a mask. And when you go to a room and look at people with pictures, wearing pictures of you as a mask, you get this distinct feeling you're about to be murdered. It is incredibly creepy. But this group, to rank them on the protest scale, I give them about a 7, maybe. Like 1 is perfectly behaved. 10 is they're setting the room on fire and trying to stab me. I would give them about a 7 because at many points they did disrupt my speech, and they were so loud I couldn't continue. And I asked them to be removed. And I'll play this clip so you can see when I try to ask the campus security guards, who were basically useless. They might as well have just been cardboard cutouts of security guards placed in the back because they did absolutely nothing. And when I went and spoke, There were students who were being loud. Some were playing music on amplified devices to drown me out. And then as I play this clip, you'll see them start to sing along with the song to drown out what I'm saying, because it's the classic, we're just going to drown you out so nobody can hear you. And at this point, I'd actually abandoned giving my talk and just did Q&A with the students to try to salvage the event. And you'll see them disrupt it, and you'll see me talk to the university, the security guards, asking them, because they said, well, if a student disrupts you, we'll remove them. And I asked them, does this count as a disruption to you? That's what I try to do, to propose rational arguments that have convinced people on this issue, and to have spirited debate and discussion with people. I've seen it change minds, but you're right. We have to change. Yeah, so this girl dressed in her little Star Trek uniform starts to try to get them to all sing along with the music. Culture before we can change laws. I have a good one. Everyone's going to help you on the spot. Would you consider this a disruption? That's his jam. You're not going to get any help from him. I love that this guy right here, he's like, that's his jam, bro. He's not going to help you. And I think he was also meaning that, well, they're not going to help you because we run this school. And actually here, let me show you another part of the talk where the security guard, he does try to tell them in a very weak way, just let him talk, guys. It's important. And I want you to hear, this is from another camera. So I'm off camera addressing the security guard. And you can hear some of the students, what they're arguing about as to why I should not be allowed to speak and they should be allowed to disrupt me. So let me play that.
Give him the opportunity to say what he wants to say.
Okay, that's good. He's like, let him say what you want to say, then you can say what you want to say.
It's Canada. It's free. We can express ourselves.
And then there's a girl who just whines, but it's about abortion and we need them. He can't say something is wrong that we need.
I don't even go on that.
Yeah, because you can't do that.
Neutral. But let this gentleman try to give his talk that he's engaged before he comes here and do.
Yeah, you would think that that's good. I at least give him a little bit of credit that he asked them to let me speak. But throughout the presentation, he never asked any of them to leave who were disrupting me. So that's why, I mean, they would just stand there and say, okay, if they disrupt you, we'll ask them to leave. It's nice that they told them to respect me, but they didn't enforce it in any way. It's like a parent, and sometimes I'm bad about this, who says, don't do that, and then there's no consequence. Well, you're going to keep doing the bad behavior.
That sounds good.
Can I ask you a question as a worker of the university?
Okay, and here's the gem, the cherry on top. Can I ask you a question? And the voice, there's some of these protesters, there's a smugness in the voice. Can I ask you a question as a member of the university? So listen, this is the guy who wants to get me kicked out because he's scared of me.
I'm a student and an employee in this university, and I don't feel safe because of that guy. So you being a security guard, like, why are you not removing that guy? Because there are a lot of people who
Am I removing anybody here?
Okay, I want you to, his argument, he's saying, I don't feel safe around this speaker because he's talking about abortion. And your job is to make me feel safe, so please remove him. Which is absurd, because it's like, actually, a lot of you people here physically don't make me feel safe. I'm surrounded by a hostile crowd, and yet none of you are being removed. And yet this guy is saying, oh, I don't feel safe because he's talking about pro-life ethics. Please remove him. Absolutely backwards and odd. And so this is the kind of thing that I was prepared for at Drew University. I was concerned that, like, oh, is it going to be one of these things where people are going to yell? Are they going to scream? Are they going to disrupt me? But I will say this, I was very pleasantly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. When I got there, the room had, I don't know, it was divided into two groups, actually. One were the protesters and the other were people that wanted to hear me speak. I would say there was probably about 50 or 60 people there, half protesters, half not protesters. The protesters were dressed in pink and rainbow signs and a lot of that other kind of paraphernalia. But I give them credit. They sat and listened to my talk on a level of disruption scale from 1 to 10. 1 is perfect listening. 10 is setting the room on fire. I would give them about a 3. I would give them about a 3 or a 4. What they would do is I would talk, and they would talk amongst themselves, but loudly. So it was rude, or they would groan, or they would laugh. but it never reached the point where they played amplified music or yelled or shouted me down. I was able to continue my address. At some point, I did turn to them and say, "Excuse me, I see you have important things to say. Could you please hold that to the end of my presentation? I would be glad to dialogue with you about it at the end during Q&A." And so I called them out on it once or twice, but I tried very hard just to give my presentation in a thoughtful and assertive way to let them know that they weren't going to faze me in that regard. So I gave my talk, and actually I gave a lot of my talk kind of on the fly. My regular pro-life talk is for a friendly audience. I wasn't sure what I was going to get. I mean, I thought it could have just been the student club and everyone else was protesting outside. But since there were members of the audience who were hostile to my presentation, I gave the presentation not as a, I'm going to train you how to be pro-life, but more as, here is why I am convinced of the pro-life position and the problems I have with the pro-choice position, and just laid it out in a logical way. And they let me finish the presentation, and we launched into Q&A. That went for about 30 or 40 minutes, and I think it went very well. Some of them vigorously challenged me. Some of them got a little bit emotional. I'll share one of those encounters with you to see how I engage a questioner at these events when it is a little bit hostile, the approach that I take. But overall, YAF and the Catholic Campus Ministry did a great job organizing. The campus security at Drew University, they did an excellent job. I felt completely safe. They picked me up at an undisclosed location on campus. They drove me to the event. They walked me through a back door. They had the area with the protesters cordoned off so that I wouldn't directly interact with them. They took me to the stage through a back entrance. I addressed the students. What's funny, you'll see in the video clip that I'll share with you, I'm actually in flip-flops, jeans, and a zip-up hoodie because my flight was delayed. I usually change into my suit. I'll check into my hotel, change into my suit, and, freshen up a bit, and then go do my talk. But my flight was delayed so much, I had to drive straight from the airport, and I was just in my casual clothes, and that was kind of funny. But overall, they did an excellent job. I was really proud of the group for putting it on. We'd definitely do more with YAF in the future. I would love to go speak at other campuses like this or to do debates at one of these campuses. I think that would be awesome. But they did a good job. So I'm going to leave you with this is one of the interactions I had with a student during Q&A. And I want you to notice with this student, we can't have a good-natured dialogue because they're standing in opposition to me and they're a little emotional. But I stay very focused on the one question, what are the unborn? And that we should not kill born. If we don't kill born people for reason X, we shouldn't kill unborn people for the same reason. And I stay focused on that like a laser, and that's what you need to do as well. So I'll leave you with that interaction. So check it out.
Hello, Mr. Horn. I have a quick question for you.
Okay.
So I'm just going to do a little bit of statistics here. I know that you've talked about how 2-year-old children are being killed versus unborn fetuses. Those are two different stories, but that's for another day. Why is it that you feel the need to talk about women who are in places of poverty? And I haven't heard not a lot about sexual assault or any of those cases. But why is it okay for a woman to carry that child to term, for them to go into foster care, if 500,000 people are, my apologies, 500,000 people are in foster care right now, and about 90% of them have reported cases of neglect, and probably about half of them have either been life-threatened or killed. So why is it that I have not heard anything about resources for women who have gone through sexual assaults, or women who have to carry their children to term for poverty? Why is it that I haven't heard anything about resources or anything like that? Again, if you can't answer the question.
Well, the focus of my talk was on the morality and legality of abortion, because I think everyone agrees we ought to help people who are in difficult circumstances, but we really disagree over whether abortion kills a human being, whether it ought to be legal or illegal. That's a big source of disagreement even within this very room. So my talk was focused on the area we sharply disagree on. When it comes to rape and sexual assault, I actually did talk about that. And
Resources, though.
No, I didn't talk about resources, but I would encourage anyone who is a victim of sexual assault or assault to contact the police department, social services, rape. I believe there's an organization, RAINN, RAINN, for example, that provides resources. So I would definitely be supportive of that. But your concern about those who are in foster care, my thoughts on that would be that many children who end up in foster care, it's not because they were the result of an unintended pregnancy.
Is actually.
In many cases, children end up in. Let me ask this: do children end up in foster care because their parents wanted them, but their parents were later deemed unfit?
That's not what I asked, and you asked about morality. And is it moral to carry a child to term knowing that they are going to be in foster care until they're 18? 65% of those children will graduate high school, even less of the percentage. You're talking about morality, so
sure,
I figured.
Then why not would it be moral to kill infants in foster care so they don't have to grow up and have a bad life?
And would it be moral to carry that child to term just for their foster parent to end up killing them?
It would not be moral to kill either an infant or an unborn child just because they may end up in a difficult circumstance. I'm saying if the unborn and born are equally human, we ought to treat them as equals. Children who are in foster care, many of the reasons that they are still there is because of a broken adoption system, one where the parental rights, for example, of their parents who are not fit cannot be severed, so they're trapped in a legal limbo, for example. I agree, we need to do a lot of work to improve the
I'm talking about the children that are born in places of poverty that are then put into this foster care because there is no other choice. Please stick to that subject.
Does killing an unborn child, that doesn't help a child who currently is in foster care. That doesn't help him or her. And also,
you're carrying more children to term. There are not enough social workers. They're already carrying 200 kids at the same time. These children are being carried to term, put into these foster care systems where these social workers are having more on their plate. There are not enough social workers. I'm asking about morality.
Right.
With that.
It's wrong to kill a child just because they will be in foster care, whether they are in the womb or they are in the crib. That is my answer.
And it's also wrong for them to, it's also wrong for them to be in foster care and be in.
It's wrong for them to be there, then kill them.
Okay.
But I believe we should kill them.
I'll just let you know something right now. America does not favor poor people, okay? So regardless of how you try to put it, you're putting them in a difficult circumstance, and a lot of them are going to be
agree
killed.
America doesn't favor poor people because they make it legal to kill poor unborn people, and that should stop.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out this episode. Don't forget to subscribe so you can get more content. If you would like to invite me to do a debate or to speak on a controversial subject at your university, definitely you can send me a message at trenthorn.com. I'm not speaking as much lately because I want to get more time to do my writing, but I think doing debates is always worthwhile. And if there is a campus group where opponents of the Catholic worldview are willing to hear out the opposition, that's something I'm interested in engaging. So yeah, definitely check us out. You can contact me at trenthorn.com. But thank you guys, and I hope you have a very blessed day. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you want to help us produce more great content like this, be sure to click subscribe and go to trenthornpodcast.com to become a premium subscriber. You'll help us create more videos like this and get access to bonus content and sneak peeks of our upcoming projects.